Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
Hmm.
So today, I'm going to ask Lee a few questions, but we're going to talk about the Connectionist setting here with me and just about what he does and what he can do. And you've been seeing some things coming out with Lee, and I'm pretty excited about it. I'm excited because Lee is definitely a connectionist. He connects things down in a way that I cannot. Um, I can support that, and it's pretty amazing to watch that, to watch him do that when he's in session with people. So I'm gonna ask him to sort of give a brief, I always say brief, and he's never brief, but it's fine. I'm going to say brief. Um,
I
um,
can be brief. And
can you?
yes,
You
yes.
can.
Yeah, I'll connect it down.
Okay.
Um,
Connect down why you can't be brief.
yeah, well, there's that.
There's that.
Um, so when Sherry and I, back in 2014, started doing root camp, um, I would start to write down things that she was asking based on, if we were talking to somebody, sitting in front of somebody. Meanwhile, I was still kind of healing some things in myself. But the way that shook out is in the beginning of every root camp, Sherry would say, Lee is going to be writing everything that you state because he draws a mental map, not realizing that that's probably what was going to happen to me. But I started seeing triangles, and I don't know what was happening with
You had
that,
to have
but
surgery for all that writing too.
yeah, I did. I did both wrists and both
For
elbows.
years you wrote.
I mean, we're talking a couple thousand people,
Yeah.
my hands. But I wrote down word for word and I kept seeing certain words being used over and over and over again per person. It was almost like the same story, but the same thing, almost like we were taught to think our feelings away. And what I started realizing was those feelings needed connection. Um, in our connection, our feelings are more valuable, more important than our thoughts because feeling is something you're born with. It's something you can't, you were never taught or educated on. You've always been told to think about your actions. You need to think about how this feels. You need to think about this, but there's never been how do you express what you actually feel? And how do you create a space so you can have that? So as a connectionist, my purpose or my function is basically to get you into the space where you feel and you let yourself feel it all the way because feelings are meant to be felt and they're also meant to be connected to, not just from outside of you, but inside of you first, because nobody can connect to you until you do that.
Mhm.
So as a connectionist, being that I really went inside to the connection to myself and was able to connect to you. And I learned it more from you without you realizing I was learning it from you, I would imagine, um, because of how much you value connection, family connection, especially. And I didn't know there was that space. So,
Mhm.
um, gosh, over 20 years of
Yeah.
exploration, but hopefully that was brief enough
But yeah, the hurt that family connection causes
and pain
and pain,
shapes
uh,
your relationships that you'll have in life.
for sure.
And I can connect that down in just about every individual I sit with. It doesn't matter whether they've had, I can usually find those pains or feel those pains before they even say anything. The way they're choosing their words starts to activate something inside because of how much listening we did.
Right.
Um, and I listened in a very deep way, but the more I would listen there, I realized that I wasn't listening to you as deep. So started questioning why I wasn't listening to you that deep, but I realized I wasn't listening to me that deep.
Right.
So everything always seemed to be that I had to heal what was in here before I could speak it out there.
I understand that.
Yeah,
Yeah. What happens? Um, what happens when you get somebody on Zoom or you get somebody in session
yeah.
and um They're wanting you to they're wanting you to help them with their issues that's going on inside their marriage.
Mm, mm.
Um, as a connectionist, do you you obviously connect that back to where that root of the issue is,
Right,
right? The root.
right.
Um, which by the way is where root camp came from. So you take it down to the root. What happens, however, if that person happens to have had a beautiful, wonderful, healthy childhood raised by amazing parents who guided them in the right direction and who guided them to be very successful, honest, loving, kind, generous people. Um, so where does that go when you have somebody who has had such an amazing life and they're struggling so hard in a marriage that they are in? Where would you connect that down to?
Um, First, I would pay attention to what happened in their childhood first. Because if you don't see that, you can't really help that person with the person they're trying to be with in a marriage. So usually the best way to answer that is they say they had this beautiful relationship with their parents, but I'll say, okay, you're telling me about your beautiful relationship with them, but tell me how you felt about their marriage. And that usually opens up that door
Yeah,
because then the question becomes, did the parents ask the child if how they felt about their marriage, their bond, their union, their being together? Be able to understand it so later on you'll be able to develop it.
right,
Those kinds of conversations don't happen really so much for children.
right.
But I would say the example you have is your parents' marriage. If you say they were successful with you, how are they successful with each other in front of you? And if they can't answer that, that's usually where you're going to find what may be happening in the marriage. There may
Right.
be some breakdowns. There may be some things that the parents did keep from that child that wasn't happening necessarily in front of the child.
Hmm.
But usually, when you end up going the path of asking about the parents, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, my parents are divorced.
Got it.
So, whatever broke them apart is the wound that they're carrying because now when they love somebody,
Yeah.
they divorce them because they learned how to love somebody who's divorced. They don't know how to love somebody who stays married.
Right.
So at some point, you don't realize that that's what you connected to and learned. So when you're walking back through it, you're walking back through the feelings, you're walking back through what you watched them do, what you didn't see them do, what you didn't ask. The goal here always is to make sure whatever reflection you're experiencing is how you're talking about yourself in it.
Hmm.
So when people choose words that have judgment, oh, it was great. Yeah, we did the right thing. We did, I was successful and I was, everybody loved, once they have this role to play,
Hmm.
when are they able to put the role down and actually have somebody connect to what they actually feel?
Right.
So they choose the latter. They're going to
Yeah.
choose the relationship and the role that they play in it.
Yeah.
If they say my parents were great, now they have a role to play as the great son or daughter.
Right.
So they're trapped in a string of judgment. So when they get married to somebody and that judgment gets activated where they're not being a great husband, but they're the great son, they have the great parents.
Yeah.
They were never taught how to be a great husband or a great wife. So that part starts to play a role in what's causing
Got it.
that because you want to be perfect for your spouse or your mate or
Yeah.
somebody you love.
Yeah.
The thing is they want you to love them. They don't want perfection.
Right.
So when you start choosing perfection, you've already left the connection and now are choosing to make it a relationship.
Yeah.
So until you start knowing that there's a huge, vastly difference between relationship and connection, you will choose your relationship role because who isn't doing that? Everybody has an identity of playing these roles.
Hmm.
You can say, "Oh, my husband Lee," or you can say, "The love of my life Lee," or you can say, "The man who's there for my feelings, who shows up for my feelings and lets me show up for his." Completely different type of feeling when you hear that or feel that.
Hmm.
but we put them in a role. Now once you hear that that's my husband, you start putting that person in whatever category. They're the provider, they're this, they're that. You put them in that space and you've disconnected from who they are as a person, what they actually
Mm.
feel inside.
Yeah.
How can you have connection if you keep doing that and live that way and not even see it?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge because my mind wants to destroy relationship so connection can
Can flow.
flourish.
Yeah.
And that's not my intent, but I can see the point
Yeah.
because people walking around when nobody's connected to their feelings we've seen it, they end up trying to take themselves out. They end up getting hooked on drugs. They end up having high anxiety. They have all of these things because they don't know how to speak from what they feel.
Right.
So they isolate themselves into that feeling and don't realize that that is a self disconnect. We're human beings. We're meant to have connection.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be without it.
Interesting. I find it fascinating.
I find it deep.
I find it fascinating because I just don't have that ability. So I find it
I
completely
don't have your ability. I mean,
right.
your abilities are amazing. I
Right.
mean, things that you've said to me, things that you've said at like specific moments. I've never met anybody I mean, I wouldn't be able to be this way if it weren't for the connection to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
because I feel the same way.
you're
Like
accepting of
I
it.
couldn't be where I am today or who I am today without the connection I have with you, for sure. For sure.
Our
That's a for sure, right?
we learned how to accept each other's feelings,
Mm.
whereas we didn't learn to do that even with our own parents or our own children.
Right.
So it was like we needed to know how deep that went. So us being connected to each other healed some things that caused some things that we don't no longer even know how to look at
Right.
the way that it's looked at.
Right.
But that's because we did so without judgment so we could heal.
Yeah.
We didn't want to stay like we
Right.
were. We didn't want to be that way. And
No.
you don't until
No.
you learn that you're playing a role that your mind has created for you and you don't realize that's the prison of what you're trapped in inside of a relationship to yourself.
Yeah.
You don't realize you can break free by having connection.
You hear people say all the time, and I say it too, the old me would have, right? The old me would have,
And
but the new me, I'm gonna chill here.
do you know what the connectionist question is to that?
What?
The old me is, what do you like about the old you? And it's funny to watch people because you gotta when you sit down and how that feels,
Mhm.
and then you actually ask yourself how you feel about yourself from a past moment. If you have any form of rejection that comes from you, oh, I don't like the way I was. If that's there, you're disconnected from yourself because
Mhm.
that you who was there before was in survival mode of something. So if you can't find a way to start liking that part of yourself, anybody who brings up your past will then be met with your disconnect
Mhm.
because they're going to give you what you give you. If
Right.
you don't like who you were in the past, they're not going to like who you were in the past. You're not giving them permission to heal. You're not giving them permission to connect to you. And you're doing that to yourself for what purpose?
Tell me about someone who's out there who's really struggling with trying to keep a healthy relationship
Okay, this is tough.
because we like to get into and destroy healthy relationships.
We first have to tell ourselves what healthy means. Healthy in this space. So the sun, the
We're
sun,
fighting
well,
the
the
sun.
sun, the light is shining. I'm okay with it. It's not really affecting me. I want to answer this correctly.
Mhm.
Healthy. Let's take that word healthy and let's look at it. Is it healthy to stuff your feelings down and your pain and your hurt and not share with another person?
No.
Okay. So first you have to know that if you can't do that, don't tell yourself you're healthy. That's your first rule. If you want to have a connection, that right there by itself is the biggest and worst disconnect you can have of not being able to share what you're feeling in your body. If you don't show up sharing what you feel in your body, How are you teaching anybody to care about your feelings? How are you caring about your feelings when you stuff it down and act like it's not there in front of the other person? So you got to look for what you're trying to tell yourself is a connection.
Mm,
If you're not willing to let go of healthy and say, you know what, this isn't about being healthy, this is about being connected. You're
mhm,
going to have to make a decision on which one is more important to your feelings, not to your mind. Your mind will tell you, let's play a role, let's act like this is okay. If we tell them this, they're going to think that. It's already found a way to keep you in a prison that was created just for you through the educational systems that we created across our world. What we're trying to do is break the pattern. Connection does that. It does that
mhm.
because your feelings are more important than what your mind does.
Right.
And that to me is is where healthy can be abandoned and connection can be how you heal. When you're healing, what you feel has to be made important, not what the story is. Once you're in a story and you start saying, well, they did this and did that, what you're telling us is you're telling about the person, but you're telling us about how you were the victim. And then when we pay attention to the victim and we say, how do you treat the victim? And what do you think your answer is? And most of the times you don't even realize that's a disconnect. You believe everybody's doing it, so why shouldn't you? So you can heal.
Mhm,
And we can do that through root camp. We can do that through connect me to me, or just doing it sitting with the connectionist for an hour.
mhm.
Running towards connection will grant you connection. But first, you have to see the connection you have to yourself. That is the most important. And that's what me as a connectionist is here for. It's my purpose. It's my mission. It's my give back to living a life where I was completely disconnected from my feelings. Feelings matter. They do.
Mhm. Yes, they do.
Anything else?
I don't think so. I think we covered what I wanted to cover.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
love you. Now, if you're not registered for organ donation, please do us a favor. Go to registerme.com.
.org.
.org. Sorry.
Registerme.org.
Okay. And from there,
You just fill out the information and register. It takes
see,
you right to the register
I
page.
did it at the BMV like everybody else.
Yeah.
I just did it.
You can
But
go right online and do it for free. Nothing.
I, even when I'd signed up for it before, because I think I was already an organ donor before,
Yeah.
I believe mom was an organ donor,
Okay.
but I
Yeah.
have no idea what happened there. But anyway, it's very important. Connection matters. And because of organ donation, I got to have the connection I have sitting next to me right here. And we have welcomed that connection because you'd kind of get some new pieces. I mean, it's interesting. It really is. And it's beautiful,
The sun's coming in.
but it's connection. All right.
Sun's coming in.
Anything else?
Thank you guys for watching.
Yes.
Talk to you soon.